This made King Saul and his warriors even more afraid, and none of them wanted to fight Goliath. Now, also amongst King Saul's army were the farmer Jesse's 3 sons from Bethlehem. One day Jesse said to his youngest son David, "Go to the king's camp and take your brothers some food. Take a sack of roasted grain and 10 fresh loaves. But take some cheese loaves for the captain." David set off and reached the army's camp towards the evening. He went to his brothers and gave them the provisions and told them all the news from home, when suddenly there was a great excitement in the camp, and everyone started looking over towards the Philistines. Goliath was making another appearance and was once again taunting the Israelites.
"Which one of you cowards is going to fight me then? Just come on, I'm waiting for you."
"Who is this man that is mocking us? Has he no fear of our God?" David asked his brothers and the other soldiers. They answered him that there was nobody strong enough to take the Philistine on. David cried out bravely, "I will fight him." But his oldest brother swore at him and said, "Go home to the flocks of sheep and stop boasting like that." When King Saul heard what David had said, he sent for him. He looked at him disappointedly and said, "You are hardly more than a child. What makes you think you can fight the Philistine?" But David answered, "My king, I have already fought lions and bears that tried to attack our herds. Let me fight this Philistine." The king was impressed with the boy's courage, and since nobody else was prepared to fight Goliath, he accepted David's offer. But only the king and his officers had armor, so he ordered the armorer to give David his. But David looked very comical wearing it. It was much too big and heavy for him. "I can't fight in this. I must be able to move," said David, and he took the armor off. He took his shepherd's crook and his slingshot and looked for 5 smooth pebbles from the bed of a stream and put them in his bag. Then he set off towards the Philistines' camp.
"By all the gods," shouted Goliath angrily when he saw David, "what do you hope to do with that stick? I'm not a dog you can just chase away. Just come over here and I will kill you."
But David didn't let the giant upset him and said to him, "You have come with all your weapons, but I have come in the name of God of Israel, whom you have mocked. You will be the one to die today." Goliath snorted angrily and started to walk towards David, but David quickly grabbed a pebble from his bag, slipped it into his slingshot, and aimed at the Philistine's forehead. The stone hit Goliath right between the eyes, and he fell to the ground unconscious as if he had been struck by lightning. David then ran over to Goliath, took his sword, and killed him with it. And when the Philistines saw what had happened to their mightiest warrior, they ran off in all directions. King Saul's soldiers chased after them, shouting, and chased them out of the country. After this great victory over the Philistines, the people of Israel celebrated for many days. The people sang songs of praise for David and held him in higher esteem than even King Saul. This did not please King Saul, but God was with David and made him one of Israel's mightiest kings.
Solomon's wisdom and his temple. King David ruled over the 12 tribes of Israel for 40 years. He united them and made a mighty people of them. As he grew old and became ill, he proclaimed his son Solomon as king and died. And so Solomon became the new king of Israel. One day, Solomon went to the shrine at Gibeon and offered burnt offerings to God there. The business of government had made him very tired, and so he lay down to sleep. But as he slept, God appeared to him in a dream and said, "If you have a wish, tell me, and I will fulfill it." Solomon answered, "You always helped my father David, and he became a mighty king and ruled a great people. But now I am king of these people. How should I rule? I am still young and inexperienced. Send me wisdom and a sense of justice, so that I may become a good king." "You have chosen well," answered God. "I like your wish. Wealth and a long life, or many victories over your enemies, are less important to you than wisdom and a sense of justice. I will fulfill your wish, and will give you wealth and fame as well." And so God did fulfill the young king's wish, and Solomon became famous for his wisdom. Once it happened that 2 women came to Solomon with a baby and asked him to settle their argument. "My king," said one of them, "we both live in the same house and have both had a baby. Mine was first, and this woman's came 3 days later. This woman's child died because she didn't look after it. She put the child to sleep and it suffocated. Then, in the night, she got up and secretly put her dead child in my bed and stole mine. The next morning I went to feed my baby, but saw that it was dead, and certainly not my child." But the other woman shouted out, "That's a lie! It was exactly the other way round. My child is alive and hers is dead." "I am not lying," said the first woman. "Oh, yes, you are," shouted the second. The king listened to them for a while, and then he said, "Enough. Be quiet, both of you. I will put a stop to this argument and pass judgment." Then he ordered his servant to fetch a sword and to cut the living child in 2. "Give 1/2 of the child to the first woman and the other half to the second," said the king. But then the real mother screamed. "No, my king, give the child to her, don't have it killed." "Split it in 2, shouted the other woman angrily. "It shouldn't belong to either of us." King Solomon gave another order. "Do not kill the child. Give it to the first woman. She was afraid for the life of the child. She is its real mother." When the people heard of the king's judgment, they greatly admired his wisdom. In the 4th year of his rule over Israel, Solomon had a mighty temple of stone built to God, as God had said to him, "I will keep the promise that I gave to your father David. If you follow my commandments, I will live in the house you build for me amongst my people, and I will never leave it." It took 4 years to build the temple on the hill of Moriah. Thousands of foreign stonemasons and carpenters were pressed into service by Solomon to complete it. The outer walls were constructed of mighty blocks of stone. Then huge halls with pillars were built inside, but inside the temple everything was panelled with gilded cedar wood and encrusted with precious stones. The whole area of the temple was then protected by high walls. When the temple was dedicated, representatives of all the 12 tribes of Israel came to Jerusalem to celebrate with King Solomon and the people of the city. The priests of the tribe of Levi festively carried the Ark of the Lord's Covenant into the temple and laid it on the altar in the Holy of Holies, as God's living area was called. Then trumpets sounded and the temple servants started to sing, "Praise be the Lord, for he is kind and his favor is eternal." Suddenly the temple filled with a giant cloud, and God took his place in the Holy of Holies. And so Solomon's great work of building the temple proclaimed the glory of the God of Israel.
Daniel in the lion's den.